the rest of Midnight Sun in Edward's point of view. Balancing EPOV, I could still feel Bella's warmth in the car, though I'd already put miles between us. I drove quickly towards home to make my nightly appearance, knowing that soon I would leave again, to take solace in Bella's dreams. Although a part of me still felt voyeuristic, the quiet comfort I had found in watching her sleep, hearing her whisper my name, was not something I could easily give up. As soon as I walked into the house, I heard chattering in the living room. My family was arguing, and yet again I found myself the center of their attention. Of course they all knew of my plans to spend the day with Bella on Saturday, and were currently in loud dispute over whether or not such a thing should be allowed. Allowed? As if I were a child and needed their permission. I rolled my eyes when the conversation came to an abrupt halt as I entered the room. "No, please, continue," I said sarcastically. "Sounds like it was just getting interesting." "Edward, we're merely discussing the situation, and what it could potentially mean for our family," Carlyle told me calmly. "Your decisions affect all of us now, and we just want to be sure you're taking all the necessary precautions. No one is accusing you of anything." "I've already told them they don't have anything to worry about," Alice added, a wide grin spreading across her face. "You love her. You're not going to hurt her." "Right," I mumbled. "Thanks." I wished I could sound more confident, that some of Alice's faith in me would rub off, but with the memory of Bella's scent still burning my throat and blurring my sense of reason, it was difficult to see things as clearly as she did. "See, he doesn't even trust himself," Rosalie said sharply. "Why should the rest of us?" "Rosalie," Esm scolded, sounding just motherly enough to make me chuckle. "Fine. Just let me know when I should start packing," Rose snapped as she flew from the room. I growled after her, but stopped when I noticed Emmett's glare. "Relax," he warned. "She's just upset. No need for you to make it any worse. Speaking of which, are you sure this little date alone with Bella is such a good idea? Why put yourself in that position? I mean, is it really worth it, making yourself go through all that?" I nodded, then looked meaningfully at Alice, who smiled and let her mind wander over a dozen or so images of Bella and I together. Alone. Safe. I held on to each one of them as tightly as I could, trying to convince myself I was strong enough to make them reality. "Whatever," Emmett thought, smirking slightly as he too left the room. "But don't say I didn't warn you." "Don't worry, Edward," Alice said kindly, noticing the worried look on my face as she bounded to my side. "Everything will be perfect. I only wish I could be sure." "Well, I'm sure," she teased. "Shouldn't that be enough?" Needing to refocus my racing thoughts, I decided to spend the rest of the evening at the piano, much to Esm's delight. I played all of her favorites, as well as the piece Bella had inspired. I let the music surround me, envelop me, until the last of my worries had faded away. As soon as it was late enough, I took off into the night with a renewed sense of confidence. I wondered how it was possible that each night when I ran away from my family and all that was familiar, every step closer to Bella felt more like home. I hurried to her window, climbed in noiselessly, and watched in awed silence at the beauty of my Bella sleeping. There was something different about her tonight, though, and I once again wished futilely that I could get a glimpse into her mind. Her face remained calm, not a single worried line taking away any of the peace from her face, yet she was obviously restless. She tossed and turned, and several times she startled herself awake, though her eyes didn't ever stay open long enough to focus on anything around her. In perfect stillness, I kept a careful distance until she fell into a deeper, dream-filled sleep. She didn't speak as often as usual, although I was excited to hear my name escape her lips more than once. "Edward," she said softly, and I instinctively leaned closer as my body fought against my common sense. It was more painful for me the closer I was, but I couldn't stop the pull I inevitably felt when she called out to me. I knew I shouldn't touch her, my icy hand would surely wake her up, but somehow with each passing second, the pull was becoming more of a gravitational force. "Edward, stay," she mumbled, turning from her back onto her side so she was facing me. More. Her unconscious request was enough to break the last of my resolve. Like a fool with absolutely no self-control whatsoever, I reached out and gently brushed a piece of hair away from her face, careful not to touch her skin. Her head tilted toward my hand like she knew I was there, and longed to be nearer. The hint of a smile played at the corner of her mouth. She sighed, her warm breath washing over my face, which was now just inches away. I felt the familiar burn intensify, but miraculously, it was overshadowed by the electric current that once again seemed to pass between Bella and I. Desperate for the distraction, I allowed one finger to lightly trace down her cheekbone, thrilling to the feeling of her warm skin against mine. Afraid she would stir at my cold touch, I held my breath and listened closely to her heartbeat, trying to find any indication that she'd been startled. As steady as her breathing, her heart continued its perfect rhythm, and I let out a sigh of relief. When she further relaxed into my touch, I started to hum softly, hoping whatever dreams were filling her mind remained pleasant ones. The night passed quickly and far too soon I could see the sun begin to streak in through the window. Once I heard Charlie stir, I knew it was time to leave her side, though thankfully I also knew it would be even less time than usual before I'd see her again. Being in the enclosed space of the car with Bella wasn't the most comfortable option for me, but I wasn't about to give up precious time with her just because it caused me some physical pain. Especially since today was my day for questions. I ran home quickly and got into my car, driving back to Bella's without stopping in at home. I didn't particularly feel in the mood to hear any more of Rosalie's criticisms, and I definitely didn't have time to calm myself down again with music if I was going to make it back to Bella on time. I arrived just as Charlie was heading out the front door, and waited until he was out of sight, parking where he had been. I saw Bella sneak a peek out her window, and laughed at how surprised she looked to see me already sitting there. Hadn't she figured out by now that I was unable to stay away from her? I thought about knocking on her door so I could properly escort her to the car, but also didn't want to rush her if she wasn't ready yet. After all, she'd still been in bed just a short time ago. Before I had time to wonder what the proper etiquette for our newfound situation was, Bella was shutting the door and making her way to the car. I took one more deep breath before she opened the car door and assaulted me with her scent again. I was determined, though, to let nothing show on my face. If she was going to open up to me at all today, I needed her to be completely comfortable in my presence. "Good morning," I said softly, smiling at her expression as she took her seat. She was staring at me with those wonder-filled eyes again, like she was still waiting for me to disappear. Then, I noticed that she looked slightly paler than normal, her eyes a little redder and watering slightly. "How are you today?" I added. "Good, thank you," she answered casually, though I could tell there was something bubbling just under the surface. Her expression was still bright, but the skin below her eyes looked shadowy. I knew she'd been stirring for a portion of the night, but I had hoped she'd gotten enough restful sleep to make up for it. "You look tired," I said, growing concerned. I quickly started trying to count the actual number of hours since she'd calmed down. The time I spent with her always flew by in such a blur, it was hard to determine. 2 hours, maybe 3? Not enough for her to feel awake and refreshed. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "Neither could I," said, unable to resist. As strange as it was getting used to the idea that Bella wasn't bothered by the realities of my life, in truth, it was nice being able to be so honest with her. "I guess that's right," she laughed. "I suppose I slept just a little bit more than you did." "I'd wager you did." "So what did you do last night?" she asked. I felt a tiny flicker of guilt, and a part of me wished I could confess that I spent my nights watching her, adoring her. Still, I didn't want her to be self-conscious, and somehow it seemed like a little too soon to let her in on all my secrets. She'd already learned far more than I'd ever intended on telling her, and today was my turn. "Not a chance," I told her with a quiet laugh. "It's my day to ask questions." "Oh, that's right," she said in a tone that made me think she wished I'd forgotten. "What do you want to know?" What didn't I want to know? So much about her was a mystery to me, and I still hadn't grown entirely used to not being able to listen and find out for myself. I was learning more about her by watching the beautiful way her expression shifted from moment to moment, but there were things about her life I wanted to know that I couldn't learn by watching. I wanted to learn about her past as well as her present, but I knew it would take her a while to feel comfortable answering my questions, so I decided to start with something easy. "What's your favorite color?" I asked, genuinely interested although she rolled her eyes at the inquiry.